Hi everybody, this is Tracy Powell, founder of The Rebuilt Woman. I want to welcome you to the webinar today. If you are someone who's lived through sexual abuse and you find yourself stuck in trying to move beyond the past, you're kind of spinning in circles, feeling like you're not getting anywhere, maybe you've never dealt with it, or maybe you've been dealing with it for a long time and you just feel like you're not moving forward, I've got some amazing information for you today that I feel like is going to help you to get unstuck and move forward in your life, and it's going to be life-changing for you. So I want to welcome you to Getting Unstuck from Childhood Sexual Abuse, 3 shifts in thinking that can change everything for you. And we are really going to get into some big shifts that maybe you've never considered or even heard before. I'm Tracy Powell. I'm a nurse practitioner, and I'm also the founder of The Rebuilt Woman, where I work with other women who are also survivors of sexual abuse. And I help them find their true authentic selves so that they can take charge of their healing journey and look toward the future with peace and feeling authentically them, and have a future that is hopeful. And I do this because not only am I the founder of The Rebuilt Woman, but I actually am a rebuilt woman. I have had my own sexual abuse past. I know how hard it is to deal with it and to face it and to move beyond it. And now it's my passion to help other women find their true authentic selves and to say that there is freedom and you can get unstuck from your past. So if this is you, you feel like there's something inherently wrong with you, you wonder why you can't just let it go like maybe everybody tells you to do, you have anxiety you're stuck in, or depression, or you feel like maybe every single day is just a chore to survive, let alone get out there and live. I want you to know you don't need to feel like this for the rest of your life. You don't even need to feel like this for the next week. And I'm going to give you some things today that are going to help you to understand yourself better and to move forward in your life. And then I've even created something that can help you dive deeper into that so that you can really shed the past. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that at the end of this. But for now, I just want you to sit back and relax and take in the things that I say today and open your mind and your hearts so that you can begin to maybe look at things a little bit differently. The goal for this is that you're going to start to see that you can actually transform from someone who lived through a horrific thing to someone who has been rebuilt and is strong and carries the weight of what happened skillfully, knowing that you are your own genuine, authentic self. So we're going to talk about 3 common traps that as sexual abuse survivors we tend to get stuck in and that make us feel like we're on this constant hamster wheel that we can't get off of because we're spinning constantly, wanting to leave it behind, wanting to get over it, trying to let it go, and we just can't seem to do it. The goal is for you to reset your life so that you can kind of change your thinking about the way that you see it, which is going to rebuild the way that your mind views what happened to you so that you can reclaim your life. And you may be thinking, I have nothing to reclaim because I was so little when the abuse started. Well, I want you to know that was me too. My first memory, I was 3 years old. And I've often thought, what is there to reclaim? But the truth is, we have our genuine selves to reclaim, and you can find that person inside of you. So today we're going to talk about those 3 traps that we get stuck in. And we're going to talk about 3 big mind shifts that are going to change everything for you so that you can begin to look at things a little bit differently and help you to escape from those traps. I'm going to tell you the number 1 thing you need to do starting today if you truly want to move forward and you're committed to moving beyond your past. And I'm also going to give you some small actionable steps that you can take starting today that's going to help you to better handle what happened to you, to handle the reactions that you have today so that you can start to overcome them and take charge of your life. So why? This word is so important to me, and especially I think it's part of why I went into medicine, because I needed to understand the why of things. When I was little, I was never allowed to ask why, but now I always want to know why. Explain to me why I am like I am. And that's what I want for you today. I want you to understand why you feel the way that you do, why maybe you act the way that you do, so that you can better understand yourself. Because when you understand the why behind what you do, you can understand the how to get beyond it. And why is not because you're broken. I promise you that is not the why. And you're going to find that out today. So this whole webinar is based in what's called the neurobiology of trauma. And the reason is because when I first heard about this, it was life-changing to me. And I thought in that moment, every single survivor of sexual abuse needs this information. Because we walk around and we think there's something wrong with us. And The truth of the matter is your body is doing something it was built to do, but it's stuck and it needs a little bit of help to get unstuck. So we walk around thinking that we're inherently broken, but in fact, we're not. Your body's having a normal reaction to what happened to you. And I want you to get this information because it is life-changing, and I hope it really helps you to understand how what happened to you plays into your life today. So I just want to tell you a little bit about me because I want you to understand where I came from so that I hope that you can see in my story that there really is hope. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and I actually tried to find at least one picture of me smiling as a kid, and I couldn't find one because I felt so flippin' alone as a kid, and I was just not happy. I wasn't protected by my family. I was surrounded by alcoholism, and again, my earliest memory at the age of 3 was the first thing I remember was sexual abuse. And I was abused by someone who wasn't my father, who was a member of my family. And then when I turned about 8 or 9 years old, my brother started abusing me as well. It went on until I was 12 or 13. And I just kind of muddled through life. But my go-to became perfectionism. So I decided that I needed to do the best at everything to try to prove my worth. And so when I was in school, I got straight A's. And I just kept going on trying to be the good girl, and it was never enough. But the problem was, once I became an adult, that never stopped. So I got out of high school, I became a nurse, I went and got a house in the country to build this life. I had 2 babies using an anonymous donor because I had had bad relationship after bad relationship that were abusive, and I finally felt like it just wasn't meant for me to be in a relationship. I filled our lives with pets. I got another degree and became a nurse practitioner. I became the fun mom. I volunteered at all kinds of different organizations, and I live, even now, I work a job in a very high intense environment. So my life has been nonstop going. And this was me. To everybody else, I looked like I had my life all together, but on the inside, I was dying more every day. I hated myself passionately. I didn't want to live. I had these 2 beautiful kids, and I just didn't even want to be here. And eventually, when I got into my early 40s, all of that grand facade of showing that I was okay to the world and I was fine came crumbling down. Certain events in my life happened, and I started to have horrible flashbacks about what happened to me. I fell into a deep depression. I had panic attacks all the time, and ultimately, I ended up trying to take my life. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and I went and sought help, and suddenly I was connecting the dots to what was going on in my life. Because when I had my little midlife meltdown, actually it wasn't even little, it was pretty big, I didn't realize how much of it was related to what had happened to me. It never went away. I always had thoughts of it, but I had really tucked it all away because I was so busy trying to show this life that I supposedly had created. But suddenly now I was understanding how my childhood had affected my adulthood. So many things made sense. And I was finally starting to feel free because for the first time in decades, I had told someone and I was dealing with it. And the weight of it wasn't weighing me down anymore because it was out. But I realized that I had fallen into what is our trap number 1. And I call this the trauma trap. The false belief that feeds our trauma trap is there is something wrong with me. So I believed for a long time that I just was inherently flawed, that I wasn't meant to have a relationship, I wasn't meant to be loved, that I had this genetic defect in my DNA that says, no, you're not like everybody else. But the truth is what was happening was I was having a very normal response to a very abnormal situation. And it turned out that it was trauma. And you may be thinking the same thing I thought at that time. Well, what I went through wasn't trauma, it just was my life. And I felt the same way. It was just the home I grew up in. It was just the way things were. Sexual abuse was just a way of life. No, that's trauma to a kid. And anything that is a deeply disturbing and distressing psychological experience is trauma. It's not just war. It's not just catastrophic weather emergencies and things like that. And what really feeds into the trauma is when your brain perceives you to be in a state of helplessness. And as a child, when you're going through these things, you are definitely in a state of helplessness. So now we're going to get into the neurobiology of trauma. And I don't want you to remember any of the, you don't have to remember the parts of the brain or anything like that, but I want you to understand that your brain has three major areas. So you have the part of your brain that's at the base of your skull that's called your reptilian brain, and that's the part of your brain where you automatically do things. You automatically breathe. You automatically have a heart rate. You don't think about those things. They just happen. In the middle of your brain is what's called your limbic system. And that is the part of your brain where your emotions are stored, your memory is stored, but it's also the part of your brain that protects you and helps you to survive. So if it senses fear, it's going to kick in and it's going to be the alarm bell that sounds everything in your body to say, stay alive. And then your neocortex is that part in the top of your brain that's got all the folds that helps you to have rational thinking. So the two parts of your brain that we're going to focus on this are your rational brain and your fear brain. Your rational brain is that part of your brain where you have morals, you have logic, you think through things. It's the part of your brain that you use that helps you decide, should I do this webinar or should I not? I don't know. Let me think about it. It's the part of your brain where you make really fine decisions about what to have for dinner or what to spend money on. Your fear brain is your alarm center. So it's watching out to keep you alive. And when things are calm, it just kind of is cruising along and it lets your rational brain do its thing. But if your fear brain senses that you're being threatened or you're helpless, it starts to kick in and it releases stress hormones, things like adrenaline and cortisol that you may have heard of. And they're the things that make your heart race a lot. The problem with the fear brain, though, is it doesn't want you to be able to rationalize anything because it wants you to jump into action. So it takes your rational brain offline when it senses that you're in danger. So let's talk about an example of your fear response in action when your limbic system kicks in and wants you to survive. Let's say you're out enjoying your day. You're in total rational brain mode because you're out having a nice Sunday drive. You've got music on the radio. You're enjoying it. Maybe your family's in the car. And then the next thing you know, you're going through an intersection and you see a car coming at you. What do? Do you sit and you think, is that car going to hit me? Maybe he's going 5 miles an hour and I'm going 10 miles an hour and so I'm not going to hit him. No, we don't have time to rationalize. You yank your wheel, right? And you try to turn to avoid that car. That's your fear brain kicking in, saying, escape, do something, act, because you're about to be hurt. So it takes your rational brain away and it wants you to act. But unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't help you, especially in a car accident situation. You yank your wheel or that other car is coming. Let's say now you've had the accident. You couldn't avoid it, it happened. So what happens when it's over? You're still in that fear mood. So your heart's racing, you can't think straight, you can't really recall a lot of the details, and that's part of fear because the part of your brain that's supposed to store your memory isn't able to because it's too busy trying to keep you alive, and so you don't really recall everything exactly the way that it was. Now, after an event like that, when you've had that intense fear reaction or stress reaction, if you have someone that you can talk it through with, who's there to console you, who can help you process through that emotion, that intense fear, to help you discharge all of that trauma that you've just been through, little by little your body can reset. And little by little you become more relaxed. Maybe you get back in a car. You might be a little tense about driving, but you're okay because you've had someone help you work through that. But if you don't have that in your life, that original trauma sits inside of you because it's never been discharged. So that car accident that you went through is still there and your brain has not forgotten. And the logical part of your brain is now maybe back online because you're not in that intense stress reaction. So you feel like, why is this still bothering me or what's wrong with me? But your fear brain has not forgotten. So the next time you go through that intersection where you had the accident, you feel your heart racing, you get a little stressed, your palms get sweaty. And then each time you go through that intersection, the same thing happens over and over and over again until maybe eventually you decide, I'm not going to go down that intersection anymore because every time I go down there, I feel bad. Then, because you still haven't processed the trauma, maybe the next strange intersection you go down, you find yourself stressed out about. You find yourself getting clammy and sweaty and your heart's racing. Until eventually, maybe you don't want to get in the car anymore. This is how childhood trauma works. Your brain has perceived what happened to you as a trauma, as a threat to your life. And because it has never forgotten that original trauma, it relives things over and over and over again. So what happens? In today's life, it sends off alarms like crazy when it gets a little bit stressed. But because that original trauma was never processed, your brain still remembers it. But the problem is your brain doesn't know the difference between the stress of what happened years ago and little stressful things that happen today, because it's ready now to jump into action to save you. And it can't discern the two. And it's kind of like if you were walking around, let's say you rammed your shoulder into a door and there's a big bruise on your shoulder, and you've got a shirt on so nobody can see the bruise, and a friend comes along and they tap you on the shoulder and they say, hey, how you doing? And you're like, ow. And they're like, what's wrong with you? I just said hi. Well, they don't know that that bruise is there. And so you explain, or you show them, hey, look, here's this bruise, and they're sorry because, hey, they hurt you, right? But now today, because your brain is having those fear reactions, people can't see that your fear brain is having that overreaction, that it's like that bruise sitting there. It makes you extra sensitive. It makes your brain extra sensitive to any stress that you have today, and it causes that kind of reaction because it's already sore. It's already there. If you tended to your bruise on your shoulder, you put ice on it, you did what you need to do to help it to heal, the bruise would go away, and the next time somebody tapped you on the shoulder, you wouldn't have that reaction. And that's how trauma works. When you can finally tend to that original trauma and help your brain to learn that what's happening today isn't a threat, you can help to calm that trauma response. But right now you've got all these alarms going off in your brain all the time. Your fear brain is like, emergency, emergency, I've got to protect you. And then what happens when it does that? Because your fear brain takes your rational brain offline, you can't think through what's happening. And so when a panic attack starts and you start to have that, your heart's racing, you feel scared, that's your fear brain kicking in. And you know inside your head it doesn't make any sense, but you can't really talk yourself out of it because your fear brain has kept you from having access to that part of your brain that helps you to rationalize. It doesn't make sense that I'm upset in this moment. And so what happens? You end up beating yourself up, right? Because you're like, why am I behaving like this? And you tell yourself, my abuse happened years ago, that shouldn't be bothering me anymore. But in fact, that's exactly what it is. It's just that over the years now, you've developed this habit of trauma, this fear response that is a natural reaction in your body because your body never learned to stop having that response. So you're having all of these false alarms about things today that have nothing to do with what happened to you decades ago. And we just got to get that message to your brain. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for trying to keep me safe today, but the threat's gone. So today I want to live my life, and I'm going to help you now, brain, to settle. Because what ends up happening, the more it happens, the more we begin to shut down, the more we withdraw from people. Or you might just end up being really anxious all the time. And again, it's just that constant reinforcement of the stress in your brain, and it's the constant reinforcement of your fear brain saying, I'm on edge. I have to secrete stress hormones. I'm going to make your heart beat faster because I need you to be protected. But what ends up happening over time is your fear system kind of goes haywire and it's not reacting the way that it's meant to. And then ultimately you end up constantly overreacting, or like me, my response was always to underreact. I would shut down. And then what happens over time is because your body is not meant to have this constant fear response going on in your body, this stress response, it impacts all of your body systems. It impacts your muscles, it impacts your memory because you can't store memories the way that you were supposed to because that fear brain is constantly working on keeping you alive versus storing your memories the way it's supposed to. Sexual abuse survivors are notorious for bad headaches and gastrointestinal issues because all of those things are affected when you've been through a trauma that's not been processed. And then on top of that, there's part of this list are things that are specific to people who have been through sexual trauma. A big one is eating disorders. Many of us live with eating disorders, and we'll get more into that later, but just know that these things are all symptoms that come with being the survivor of sexual abuse. And if you experience any of them, it's common. You're not alone. So what do we end up doing? Because we don't ever learn really to deal with our stress response, because we are not able to physically shut it down ourselves, because no one ever taught us how to deal with stress. We tend to numb it because we just want to feel better, right? And so some people numb it through drugs and alcohol. Some people numb it just through shutting out altogether. Some people choose my favorite, food. And, we just want to not deal with those feelings because we don't know what to do with them. But when you learn how to manage your stress response, you're not going to need to numb, because that underlying issue will be resolved. You might swing the other direction because you're so used to anxiety in your life, or that intensity. Maybe you work a lot. This was me. Like I was going and going and going. I was going back to school. I went to school for my doctorate that I ended up stopping. But I realized the only reason I was in the program was just because I am so used to that stress on top of me all the time. And nothing stressed me out like being in a PhD program and working full time and taking care of my kids. And so we put ourselves in these situations that, because we're used to that feeling, that stress response, your body gets used to it and it kind of longs for it. But here's the good news. Because now you understand why you have the reactions that you have, why there's panic, why maybe you shut down, now you can learn how to escape the trauma trap, and you can help your brain learn to settle. And for now, we just want to talk about 3 things that you can do, and I'm going to give you more specific things you can do at the end of this webinar. But I just want you to understand that if you begin to recognize where your reactions are coming from, that your fear brain kicking in, then you can begin to intervene and help your brain learn to not have those overreactions, or to shut down and have those underreactions. And more than anything right now, it's just important to give yourself grace and compassion, and to try to give yourself a chance and just say, hey, there's a reason that I feel like I do, that I have these reactions and responses, and I'm allowed to, because I went through some pretty horrible stuff. But now that I get it, I'm going to give myself the grace that I need to learn what I need to do to move forward. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what is the second trap that we as survivors of sexual abuse can get caught in. And I call this the shame sham, because shame is a huge, huge friend of fear when it comes to having lived through this stuff. And the false belief that we hold that supports shame is that I'm unlovable, or I'm worthless, or I don't matter. And these are things that we learned as kids. And then subconsciously, as we grew older, we just supported that idea. But the truth is that shame from what happened to you, shame from a lack of support from your family, or from not telling anyone, keeps you stuck. And the lies of shame keep you from moving forward. So there's a double whammy that happens when you've lived through sexual abuse as a child. Not only do you have that trauma response that is going off all the time in your head, but often as kids, we didn't have someone to teach us how to move through those traumas. We didn't learn how to cope in healthy ways. And so now you've got this trauma response and you don't have healthy coping mechanisms. And because what happened to you happened in the confines of a relationship, often with someone who should have been teaching you how to be able to cope, we begin to internalize that there's a problem with us. There's something wrong with us. And so shame gets built into who we are. Then you have poor coping mechanisms. You don't move through the hard times well. You numb. And then it affects how you interact with yourself in the world, because you don't really grow up learning how to interact with other people. So then those shame messages get sealed into us by those around you. People point their fingers and say, stop talking about it, or leave the past in the past. And then we feel bad because we weren't able to leave the past in the past. Or we have people around us trying to tell us that things weren't as bad as we think they were. Or, society as a whole these days doesn't want to hear it, right? So many people have come out lately about what's happened to them, and then people are pointing their fingers saying that they're liars because they don't remember exactly what happened, or because they waited too long. But the truth is, the general public doesn't understand traumatic memory, and they don't understand how sexual abuse can sit in you for a very long time as a trauma, and then finally one day you just can't hold it in anymore. We have shame from the abuse itself. So not only just the knowledge of the fact that the abuse happened causes shame in us, but then we shame ourselves because we look at the little girl that we were and we say, why did you allow that to happen? We use our adult brain to rationalize what maybe we should have done as kids. But the truth is, as kids, we had no voice in what happened to us. And I'm going to tell you that I have met countless survivors that this is where they're stuck. They're so caught up in, if only I had done X, Y, or Z differently, it wouldn't have happened. But you have to know that abusers don't care. They're not worrying about what you're doing. They're out for what they want, and they know how to manipulate you. And for a long time, I held myself responsible because I actually walked next door to my abuser's house. But the truth is, he threatened me, and I knew that if I didn't go, I was going to get hurt. And whether or not that would have happened, I don't know as an adult, but I know as a child, you're scared to death. And so you do what you are groomed to do, and they're very good at manipulating you. This is the biggest challenge, is getting in there, getting in touch with that girl, and forgiving her if you're holding her responsible, because you were an innocent child. And this blame is not yours, and this shame is not yours. This is the other big one that causes so much shame and keeps us stuck. And I'm someone who got stuck in this. We have bodies. Our bodies were built to do certain things. And yes, there are times our bodies may have reacted. And so we tell ourselves, well, because my body reacted, then I must have wanted it. Or it must not have been as bad as I thought. But just like your trauma response is the way your body is built, having a normal body reaction to a physical sensation is the way your body is built. That doesn't mean that you wanted it. It doesn't mean that you asked for it. It just means that your body did what it was supposed to do. So I really want you to think about this one and the last one and know that these are two huge areas that survivors get stuck in. And if you want to move forward, you're going to have to try and release the shame of this, because the shame doesn't belong there. And no amount of constantly telling yourself, because my body reacted, I didn't want it, or it wasn't as bad as I thought, is going to change the fact that your body reacted. But the fact that you're here tells me that it very much affects you. So maybe you can try just a little bit to give your body the grace to say, I get it, body. This is how you were made to be, and you did what you were made to do. That doesn't mean that you wanted it. It just means it did what it was meant to do. And then finally, the thing that holds us in a place of shame, where we buy into the shame sham, is what we tell ourselves. Because of body reactions that we had that we feel like were the wrong thing to do, because of decisions that we made back then, because of messages that we got from our abusers or from the people who didn't protect us, over time, we just internalize that whole message of, I'm bad, I did bad things, I'm tainted, I'm dirty, I'm not lovable. And then we reinforce those thoughts in our brain. And as things happen today, we continue to reinforce them. So let's go back to your trauma response and the spilled milk. So let's say your child spilled milk, and then because you were a little stressed, your trauma response kicked in, and then you screamed at your child. And then when you finally calm down and your rational brain is back online, you feel bad, and shame kicks in because that's your natural go-to. So then you reinforce your whole, see, I really am a bad person. But it's all natural responses that you're having that are subconsciously going on underneath, that until now you didn't realize what was going on. Then we continue to shame ourselves by shoulding and shouldn'ting ourselves. So you fall into should syndrome. I should be over it. I shouldn't feel so bad. The big thing for a lot of survivors is, why am I not past it now? Why did I let it go? Why can't I just forget? I should let it go. Or your family tells you, leave the past in the past, you should let it go. Don't be upset. But oftentimes, that shame from your family comes from them not wanting to deal with it. They don't want you to tell the truth, because then they're going to have to become aware of what's going on and really face it. So you can escape the shame sham just like you can escape your trauma trap. And I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but if you start actually practicing releasing your shame, eventually you can let go of the shame. And it just starts with simple little things, like catch yourself when you say the word should or shouldn't. I should do this, I shouldn't do that. Know that the should and the shouldn't matches the shame. And so when you're saying those things to yourself, you are self-shaming yourself. And just start to take baby steps toward acknowledging that maybe as a child, you really didn't play a role in what happened to you. And again, I understand this is a big one for people to let go of. But I want you to understand that it's in letting go of this that you get to move forward. And wouldn't it feel so good to feel free in your life and to be authentically you and to never hold yourself accountable for what happened to you that was completely out of your control? So if you can just take a step back and begin to observe what happened to you, put another child in that situation. Would you blame that child? Just give yourself a little bit of grace. Yet again, this is all about grace and compassion for yourself and what you went through as a child. And know that other people's opinions are not your reality. For the longest time, I felt like because everybody was telling me I should be over it, there was something wrong with me. But really, in the end, oftentimes people telling you to leave the past in the past, it's just because they don't want to deal with the reality themselves. And so it's easier for them to shame you and to keep you in your place. But you have a right to heal from this. And shame will keep you from healing. And final trap is trap number 3 that I call the identity illusion. And this happens as a result of being stuck in that trauma trap and being stuck in the shame sham. So what do you believe? My identity is all I ever be is a worthless, damaged woman. But the truth is, you have the power to unbecome all those horrible things that you think you are and to become whoever you want to be. You just maybe never had anybody in your life tell you that you had the power, but I'm telling you, you have it. I promise you, it's in there. You just need someone to support you and help you through this time so that you can escape these traps and move forward in your life. So something that feeds into this identity illusion is called cognitive dissonance. And what this is when the evidence that surrounds you conflicts with a belief that you hold. So this picture is a good example of cognitive dissonance. So this little itty bitty kitty is looking in the mirror at this big lion, right? And he's looking at him and he's going, oh, I must be a big, tough lion because that's the reflection that I see in the mirror. That might be good in that case, but imagine it flipped and the lion's looking in the mirror and he's looking at a little itty bitty kitten. And so now he feels like he's this weak, helpless kitten when in fact he's this big, strong, ferocious lion. This is what happens to us. When you're a child who's been abused, or maybe you weren't supported by your family, or maybe people picked on you or made fun of you, we're born to believe that we have worth and that we deserve love. But when the evidence around you doesn't support that, it's easier as a child to go, I'm the problem. There's something wrong with me, and they're all right. Because it's not easy for a child to accept that the people who are supposed to be loving and caring for them are broken people. But the truth is, that's exactly what the case was. People who should not have been rearing children did. But because you were a kid, you abandoned your belief that you had worth and you were worthy of love, and you bought into the lies of abuse. But then what happens is that stays inside of you. So when you become an adult and you try to build a life, you still have those feelings of I'm not worthy. But then there's an opposite cognitive dissonance as an adult. So now you're building your life. Maybe you've got kids, maybe you've got a good job, maybe you're, whatever you're doing to get by day to day. And you're telling yourself, I should be feeling pretty good about my life. But your external evidence is not supporting what you feel internally. And so you have this big conflict. So it's about starting to recognize that the good in the world that surrounds you is who you are, and starting to open up to maybe your belief isn't accurate. And then as children, we develop what's called learned helplessness. So that kind of keeps us in these beliefs about our identity. This comes from, if you look at this picture of this elephant, learned helplessness is when you've been held back and suddenly you're free and you don't do what you can to help yourself because you don't believe that you can. Elephants in the circus or in other places where they're held captive can be tied to poles just by their leg and they don't move. And then when they let the rope go, the elephant still doesn't leave because it believes it's helpless. It can't do anything. So this big, massive animal is held captive without even being tied down because he's learned he's helpless. As kids, when we're abused or we're not supported, we learn we don't have a voice. We learn we can't help ourselves. But now as an adult, you have the power to help yourself. You have the power to teach that little girl that you were that she has a voice, and you have the right to give her her voice. Not only do you have the right to, but you need to, so that you can begin to help yourself to move through all of these traps that you can get stuck in. So these childhood skills, cognitive dissonance, learned helplessness, our trauma response, they all protected us. But as an adult, they're not useful anymore. So to escape your identity illusion, you need to check in with yourself and ask, are these feelings that I'm feeling really true for the situation? Does it make sense that I feel like this? Begin to question yourself when you say, I can't. And that's part of that learned helplessness that we tell ourselves all the time, I can't do this and I can't do that. But is that reality? Is that you can't, or is that you choose not to? If so many people say to me, I can't get out of bed, are your legs broken? Because if they're not broken and they work, you can get out of bed. The question is, do you choose to? Now, there are some things that are difficult. Like for me, I can't stop a flashback. Sometimes I get flashbacks. Many of us, most of us who have PTSD have flashbacks. But what we can do is choose how we respond to them. And that's a skill that you can learn by recognizing that you have choices now for how you respond to life, how you respond to stress, and to learn the skills that you need. And I'm going to teach you some of those skills when we get to the end of this. And to deconstruct false childhood beliefs with objectivity. So if you believed as a child that you were worthless, was it that you were worthless, or was it the people who were around you didn't know how to raise a child because they had their own problems themselves? And really, they probably weren't even worried about you. They were worried about themselves. So there is good news in all of this, honestly. You can learn how to tolerate stress. You can learn how to flip your sham, and you can change your identity illusion to become who you truly are. And it starts with changing your mindset. You have the ability to change your old reactivity patterns so that you can start to respond to life. You can learn to self-regulate. Even though you weren't taught that as a kid, as an adult, you can learn these things. And if you change your mind about the way you approach this stuff, it will change your life. It's really all in how you look at it. So it's about getting objective, about looking at the shame, about looking at your abuse and who you're blaming, changing your viewpoint. Because as a child, your viewpoint came from this little person who just saw the world as not on her side. But maybe it's not like that at all. So now I just want you to consider possibly starting to look at things a little bit differently. That maybe the shame wasn't yours. Maybe the blame was never yours. Maybe there's a reason that you react the way that you do to life. There's all good reasons for those things, and that it's really not a statement about who you are as a person. It's not about you're worthless or you're unlovable or you're broken. It's just the way that you began to see yourself as a result of your abuse, as a result of the way that you responded, and that perhaps that you are not the way that you see yourself. And that if you look at things a little bit more objectively, maybe in fact you're not at all the way you see yourself. And you're just this person who's been trying to navigate the waters of life, and now you're ready to move forward because you're here and you've had enough of being stuck. And it all starts with changing your point of view. Phew, that was a lot of information. How are you feeling? Are you still with me? Is it making sense? Or are you ready just to be like this guy and you're exhausted now because it was so much information and it's a lot to take in? But I hope what you're getting from this is that there is hope. There's a why behind why you feel like you do, why you're stuck, and there is a way out. And so like this guy, I want you just to take a little bit of a mind rest, take a deep breath, and I'm going to give you some very good steps that you can take starting today that's going to help you jump into action to try and start to get yourself unstuck from all of these traps that as survivors of sexual abuse we tend to get stuck in. And the first action step I'm going to teach you has to do with taking responsibility for your ability to respond. And I just want you to get, I know sometimes it's easy for us to get very resentful because what happened to us wasn't fair, it wasn't right, it was horrific, and it's really honestly something else that keeps some people stuck, that you harbor that resentment and then you don't move forward because you don't want to have to take responsibility for what happened to you. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to live the life that you want, you do need to learn to manage the way that you react and train your trauma brain to not have those subconscious reactions, to remind yourself to not let shame run the show. And so I want to help you to change your ability to respond to the situations that you're in so that you can get the peace in life that you want, so that you can feel authentically you and understand who you are, free of the shame and the hurt of the past. And it starts with the number one thing that you need to do to be able to move forward, and that is self-acceptance. And I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form right now that you need to love yourself, that you even need to like yourself. I'm not asking you to look in the mirror and say 1,000 times, I'm amazing, I'm smart, I'm kind. I don't want you to do that. I've been there, I've done it. It doesn't work when you don't believe those things and when you're stuck in that cognitive dissonance and you don't believe that you're anything more than an abused child or that you're worthless. All I'm saying is, in this case, self-acceptance is accepting you as you are right here today, flaws and all. Understanding now that there's a reason that you have felt the way that you do. There's a reason that you have responses that you have. They all make sense now. You're having normal reactions to an abnormal situation. And it's okay. But when you accept yourself where you are right here, right now, you're able to move forward. If you keep shaming yourself and saying, I shouldn't behave like this, or I shouldn't do this, or I shouldn't do that, then you don't allow yourself the opportunity to step into what's going on so that you can start to move beyond it. The next action step you can take is simply the word wait. Why the word wait? Because your nervous system doesn't know how to wait right now. It just wants to react. And so when things happen, for instance, like let's go back to the spilled milk situation. Somebody spills milk in your house, you instantly overreact or you underreact, and you either walk away from it or you flip out. Reminding yourself, oh, my fear brain is sounding the false alarm again, and I need it to wait. I need it to learn it doesn't need to do this, that the fear of a long time ago is done. So just by saying wait, fear brain, I need my rational brain to work. And it might not kick in that moment. You might not be able to rationalize through what you're doing, but if you can just say wait and take a step back, you're going to stop that panic from setting in. Because what happens is our panic attacks happen as a result of that fear response. And when panic continues, it grows and it gets worse and gets worse. But if you can interfere in that fear response, it keeps it from growing. Step away from the situation and eventually your rational brain is going to come back online, and then you can walk back to the situation and you can deal with it. But right now, your focus is just to interfere with that automatic fear response. And just play around with this a little bit, and you will be shocked as you start to observe when your fear response kicks in. And then if you can start to consciously start to interject that word wait, you're not going to go into those full-blown panic attacks like you're used to if you can keep yourself calmed down a little bit. You may still have some panic, but it won't magnify the way that it always has if you're somebody who has really severe panic attacks. And then the next action step is called name it to claim it. And what that means is we tend to shut off our feelings. As sexual abuse survivors, we get disconnected from our bodies. We aren't in touch with the sadness or the pain or the hurt or the anger, or there might be one feeling that we keep a hold of, like anger or sadness, and then we sit in that. But what happens is when you don't have your full range of emotions, you can't feel the good too. And so name it to claim it is when you're feeling whatever you're feeling, stop and allow yourself to feel it. This is another way we shame ourselves too, is if you're upset or you're angry or you're afraid or you're sad, you try to talk yourself out of it, like I shouldn't feel like this. On the flip side, if something good happens, we talk ourselves out of enjoying the good because we're used to the bad feelings. And your brain is naturally attracted to the bad feelings. And so in the moment of whatever's happening, good or bad, get in touch with those feelings. Name what's going on and allow yourself to sit in those feelings. Research has shown that if you take 15 to 20 seconds and just feel the feeling, you will move through it. If it's a good feeling and you sit into it for 15 to 20 seconds, it actually starts to sink into your body. And over time, those good feelings start to outweigh the bad feelings. So just name your feeling and then give yourself the grace to sit in it and feel it. So to recap, your trauma trap, the escape from that is the word wait. Interfere in your automatic trauma response. Your shame, name it to claim it. You're allowed to feel your feelings. When you shame yourselves out of it, when you say you shouldn't feel a certain way, that just is going to perpetuate your shame. Instead, allow yourself to feel it and feel the good and the bad. And then when it comes to your identity illusion, you're going to deconstruct your false beliefs through objective observation. So really looking at what happened. Imagine another child in that situation. Imagine your life now even. you may perpetuate the way that you feel bad about yourself because maybe you make bad choices today. But now I hope through this webinar you've learned there's a reason you make those choices, and now you can start to deal with what's lying underneath of it so that you can start to make better choices and not have a need to make poor choices when it comes to numbing out or trying to escape the bad feelings that you've had. Most importantly, I can't say this enough, self-acceptance, grace, and compassion for yourself. What you've been through is a horrific thing that nobody should have to go through. And I'm so sorry that you even need to be here today. But I want you to know that there is a way past it. There's a way to get unstuck, and there's hope. There is joy and there is freedom. You know, I went from attempting suicide to now I love my life. It's not without its challenges. I still have to manage my PTSD, but I don't allow it to pull me down anymore. And for right now, all I'm asking of you is just give yourself the space to know that this is a possibility. Give yourself the compassion and the grace that you need to move through. So at this point, you may be feeling like, where do I turn from here? Now I understand all this. What do I do with it? I've given you the action steps, and when you put them in place today, they're going to help. But I'm sure you're aware it's not as simple as just putting a couple action steps in place overnight and suddenly you're over being molested. At this point, the choice is up to you. You can stay on the path to the left and continue stuck where you are. You can stay on that hamster wheel of getting up every day and saying today you're going to make it a better day, but then it ends up being the same thing all over again and you're getting nowhere and you're stuck in the weeds. Or you could take a chance and take the path on the right and reach out for help and start to really address these underlying issues that keep you stuck where you are. And it's because of that stuckness that I ended up seeking more help for myself. I went out and I found some groups, but the problem was when I went to those groups, all they did was talk about what they were struggling with. There was never any guidance for moving through. And so I want to invite you to something that I've created, that I've helped other survivors with, that I would like to invite you to join me with as well. It's called Healing with Grace. And grace actually came from what I created for myself. Back in the beginning, when I was really struggling and I was suicidal, I knew I didn't have access to my rational brain. My fear brain kept kicking in. And so I created this grace program just for me, to be a reminder to me of what I needed to do to get through the hard times. And as other survivors that I knew were seeing the improvement in my life, they were like, what are you doing? And so I shared my grace program with them because I needed action steps to remind myself what I needed to do to move through. I didn't just want to talk about the suffering. We need to talk about that, but we also need to move forward. We have a right to look forward to our future and to feel authentic and happy. And so this program is intended to help lift the weight of what you're carrying and help you bear that weight skillfully. It's not going to erase your past. It's not going to make you completely fine at the end of the program, but it is going to help you to move forward and to be able to handle what happened to you with grace. I met a nurse several years ago who heard me talk, and she came up and she said to me, I've never told anyone this before. She was 46 years old. She was one of those people who had built this life that everybody saw as amazing, and she looked fine to everyone. And she confided in me that she had never told anyone about her abuse and that she was planning to kill herself 2 days later when her kids were at a sleepover. We talked for a while. She told me she didn't believe me that things were going to get better. And all I asked was for her to try to at least trust me to guide her. And she did. And now she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. Like, I love watching this woman because she is free of the past. And that's what I want for you. I want you to know that it's possible. And sometimes it takes seeing another survivor who's been there and been through it to really believe that it's possible. So I created this program because I've been in your shoes. I know what it feels like. I know the shame and the sadness and the hurt that goes with it. And I want to help you through that. And this program is based in the neurobiology of trauma. And it goes back to that whole, I needed to know why. I needed to understand. And I want you to know why and understand yourself so that you can move forward. And it's not about having a neuro lesson. You don't need to know your entire nervous system and how it works. You just need to understand how trauma impacts your life. And this course is based in the science of that and science that has shown methods that help you to move forward. And throughout this program, you'll build your own personalized GRACE plan for self-care that I had affectionately referred to as my own GPS for navigating my healing journey. GRACE stands for grounding, resilience, acceptance, connection, and empowerment. And these are the 5 strategies that are important for moving through what happened to you and for bearing the weight of it skillfully so that you can manage when flashbacks come up, when sadness sets in, when you're triggered. When you have grace for yourself and when you have your GRACE plan, you can navigate these things skillfully. Throughout the course, you'll have downloads where you're going to create your own journal that you'll fill out, you'll personalize it, you'll reflect on the things that we discuss in the week, how those things show up in your life, and then I will give you exercises that are going to help you to move through those things so that you can overcome them and build your toolbox for moving forward. So let's just go through the program a little bit. I'm going to tell you that it's 9 modules long, and we'll look at each module and explain what we're going to talk about throughout the course. In module 1, we're going to focus more on your trauma response. So we're going to get deeper into it and really look at how it shows up in your life. Your trauma response is, you've probably heard of the fight-flight reflex. Well, there are 2 other F's that go along with that. And in this, we will start to identify what is your particular trauma response so that you can more specifically gear the activities that we do and the exercises toward your trauma response so it's more effective for you. In module 2, we're going to talk about how we actually find comfort in the chaos of trauma. And I know that doesn't make any sense right now, but the truth of the matter is your trauma response, shame, that bad identity, it's what you've come to know. It's what your comfort zone is. And so we're going to look at that. How does that develop in your life? And how do you push beyond that comfort zone? Because if you stop and think of it, how does imagining a happy life feel to you? Does it feel foreign? For me, it was terrifying. All I knew was abuse. All I knew was feeling bad about myself. How in the heck could I ever be happy? So we're going to look at that and what it takes to step into that and step out of your uncomfortable comfort zone so that you can finally allow the joy and the peace into your life. In module 3, we're going to talk about that girl inside of you, and we're going to talk about reparenting her. And what that means is going back and teaching her that she has worth, that she has value, that her feelings matter. And if you're anything like I was back then, you're thinking, reparent? Me? No way. I'm the broken version of her. It's exactly how I felt. I just thought it was impossible. But the truth of the matter is, when I finally allowed myself to accept the girl that I was and to begin to care about her and love her and show her that she could have joy in her life, my world blew open. Suddenly now I was allowing in good things. And so we're going to dive into that. Like, how can you get in touch with that girl? We'll do activities that are going to help you start to, give her a little bit of attention. I'm not saying that you have to completely befriend her through this course. Just start to open up to allowing her to feel what she feels without judgment. And we're going to talk about something called emotional flashbacks, which is something that happens a lot with adults who were the survivors of childhood sexual abuse. Actually, all childhood abuse can result in emotional flashbacks, but it's where you flash back not only in your memories, in visual and auditory things, but also it's the emotions of what happened back then. So we're going to talk about that and how that impacts your life today and how to overcome that. Module 4 is where we get into the actual 5 strategies of grace, and it starts with grounding. This is the most important foundation of everything that we're doing because you need to be grounded and feel safe to be able to even move through anything else when it comes to dealing with your abuse. And so we'll get into, why do flashbacks happen? What are they? What brings them on? What are triggers? And then we're going to talk about how you can keep yourself grounded in today, which just means being safely in the present time so you're not being pulled back subconsciously or consciously into the past and reacting to things that aren't real anymore. And we'll go through activities that you're going to be able to do and exercises that are going to help you to learn to keep yourself grounded through the toughest of times. Module 5 is about resilience. And right now you might be thinking, I have 0 resilience. I melt down all the time. I can't manage my life. I promise you, resilience is in there. Just the fact that you're in this webinar shows how resilient you are, that you are looking for an answer and you want to move forward. You are resilient. It's just that maybe you've never had someone teach you how to use your resiliency muscles. And so we're going to get into that in this. What is resilience? How do we strengthen your resiliency muscles so that you are able to bounce back better if you get triggered? And we're going to talk about how actually failure is a good learning tool for you. And I used to beat myself up all the time if I thought I was doing well for a while and then suddenly I got triggered again or I became anxious again. But those were actually learning moments for me. So the next time a situation like that arose again, I knew how to react to it. So we're going to talk about resilience, and we're going to do even more activities in this section to help to build that resilience muscle in you. Module 6 is about acceptance. So this is the thing that I really want to drive home to you, because this is where the change really happens. When you can accept yourself as you are, where you are today. But we dive deeper into acceptance in this, and that it's not just about accepting yourself, it's about accepting the past, accepting the fact that it happened. I can't tell you how many people get stuck in this. They don't want to accept it. You want it to be gone. You want your healing to be, it never happened. And I know this because it was me. I wanted that to be the answer. It never happened. I'm not feeling bad about it because I'm completely healed, like it didn't exist. But the truth of the matter is, I can't change my past. You can't change your past. But we can change where we go from today. We have the ability to do that. And part of being able to do that is in accepting that what happened to you happened, and now it's your responsibility to move forward and to take that little girl with you that you were and pull her into the future. Help her to feel safe and help yourself to feel safe. Module 7 is the C of grace, which is connection. And this is so important because we tend to disconnect as survivors of sexual abuse. We disconnect from our bodies. We disconnect from other people. We disconnect from our feelings because it's safer in our bodies to do those things. Safer as kids. As adults, not so much. We miss out on life because we're disconnected. And so we're going to talk about how your trauma disconnects you from the world around you and yourself, and then how you can begin to reconnect with the parts of yourself that a long time ago you let go of. My favorite module is empowerment, because this is what I want for every single one of you, to feel empowered, to know that you are resilient, you're amazing, and you have the power within you to make your life be whatever you want it to be. And I'm going to try not to cry here. I met a survivor once named Angie, who she was in her early 60s, and I just remember her looking at me and she was bawling, and she said, "I'll never be anything or anybody because I'm so broken, because I was abused and I was taken advantage of, and it ruined me for the rest of my life." That wasn't true. Angie was a perfectly capable and competent person, but she never had anyone help her to believe that in herself. And so Angie and I became friends after that, and I spent time with her. And it's been 2 years now. She's 65, well, I guess, yeah, she's almost 65 years old. She's in college. She's making up for lost time because she's finally seen that she really did always have the power. She just had those lies of abuse constantly feeding how she felt. You have the power, and that's what I want to give you through all of this, is just to know that however you choose to heal from your abuse, you've got the power to do it, and you can move forward. So we're going to focus on giving you that power and helping you to replace those negative thought patterns with thought patterns that are going to give you the strength that you need to move forward in your life and find your voice and trust that inner wisdom that a long time ago you may have shut off. Module 9 is bringing it all together. So this is the end of the course. It's 9 weeks long. And in this module, you've built your grace plan. You have your GPS for your healing journey for moving forward. And in this module, we're going to talk about what are the research-based methods that are out there that maybe you need to dive deeper into your trauma. Maybe it's best for you to find a therapist. Quite often, as the survivor of childhood sexual abuse, you need a therapist to process your trauma through. And there are different modalities that you can do that help you to process those traumas. The thing of it is, it's hard to get into those modalities if you don't feel safe in your body and you don't feel capable. So this course is going to give you that ability to feel capable and give you confidence so that you can walk in and face your past and know that you can move forward. So I'm going to help you to learn what's available out there to you, and then you're going to create your healing journey. Where are you going to go from here? You and your GPS can go wherever you want. It's limitless. So along with your program, you're going to get some bonuses. One is twice monthly coaching calls with me. So we'll all get together twice a month. You can send in questions to me that you might have about the program or anything that we'll discuss during those calls. And I'll also have a topic that I will bring to each call that we'll talk about and we'll focus on. That will dive a little bit more deeply into something that may or may not be in the course, or it might be something that's just come up for one of you and you want to discuss a little bit more closely. If you can't make the live call, it's okay. It's going to be recorded. You can still send in your questions. I'll still answer them on the call, and then you can watch the playback at another time. So as part of your course, you'll get 6 full months of twice monthly coaching calls. You're going to get to be part of the private online support group that's only for women who are members of the Healing with Grace program, where we can all come together as survivors of sexual abuse, give each other support, work strategies together, give each other encouragement, and just know that you're understood. To have a place where you can vent, where you can talk about your struggles, or maybe you've never talked about your abuse and you'll begin to feel comfortable to share your story. It's a safe place to do it. And then finally, your third bonus is a 30-minute Yoga for Sexual Abuse Survivors video, which is going to be a small course that's done by a trauma-informed yoga instructor who is going to teach you the importance of yoga in dealing with trauma. Because as we talked about earlier, trauma isn't just in your brain, it's in your body too. And when you haven't healed from your trauma, it gets stuck in your body. And yoga is amazing at helping you release it from your body. And I gotta tell you, I was a little skeptical of yoga for trauma, and I didn't want to do it. I tried yoga, just regular yoga, and I got very triggered. I had a lot of flashbacks, and I just said, no way ever again will I do it. And somebody convinced me to try trauma-informed yoga, and now I'm such a huge believer that I had this trauma-informed yoga instructor make this video just for you, because I want you to try it, and I want you to know that it really does help. Then I have a super special bonus for all of you who are in this course. If you are committed to Healing with Grace, if you work the steps, and you are really moving forward in your journey because you want a peaceful future where you can be whatever you want to be and you know that your possibilities are limitless, you've worked this whole program, I'm going to give you a lifetime membership in the Rebuilt Woman's Strivers Club. And what this is it's a club for women who are just committed to not allowing the past to run your life anymore. And you may have heard the term survivor and thriver and all those good things. I throw those words out. For me, we are women who live through sexual abuse, and I'm just striving every day to do my best. And that's all I want for you. And so the Strivers Club is just a group of women who are striving to rebuild our lives into what we want it to be. You're going to get a lifetime access to this. So you're going to have all of the private online support group that's there for us. There's going to be monthly challenges. We'll have meetings, and there's exclusive discounts. So when I hold in-person workshops, you'll get a discount on those things. This alone is worth $260 a year, and you're going to get it for the rest of your life if you commit to this program, because that's how much I believe in the program, and that's how much I believe in you. So the recap is, for this program, in the first 3 modules, we're going to dive deeper into your trauma response. We're going to dive deeper into the impact on the child and you. Then we'll get into the 5 grace strategies, and you're going to build your GPS plan for navigating your healing journey. The whole course is going to be full of exercises and downloads and worksheets that you can fill out. You can build your own journal. I've made all kinds of journal pages for you so that you can start a binder if you want and keep them in there, or you can download them and just leave them on your computer. You're going to get the bonuses, your private online support group, 12 coaching calls, and the yoga course, and then your lifetime access to the Strivers Club if you really commit to this program, worth over $3,400 if all of this was bought separately. But I want you to do this program because I so believe in it, and I've seen the change that it's made in so many lives. So I really want you to give it a try. And if you find that it's not for you, if you apply the first couple of weeks of coursework you just feel like it's not making a difference in your life, but you've really truly tried, I'll give you your money back within 30 days. I just want you to take this chance on yourself, invest in yourself and your future, and know that there is hope out there. So there's 3 ways that you can get into the course. You can start today with one payment of $497, or I'm trying to make it easier so that as many people as possible can get the course. You can make 3 payments of $177 or even 6 payments of $97. So I hope that you're ready to rebuild your life. You're ready to move forward from the past and get unstuck and live the life that you deserve. If you choose to join the program, your experience will begin immediately. You'll get into the course, you'll get an email that welcomes you. It'll give you your sign-in information. As soon as you register, you can start the course tonight. You'll get into the Getting Started module. You can get into the group and start getting support. So if you're really struggling right now, you're going to be surrounded by women who get it. And then if you have any questions along the way, all you need to do is reach out. I really hope you choose to make this investment in yourself. I know how easy it can be as the survivor of sexual abuse to not make that investment, to not take a chance on yourself, or to not believe that maybe things can get better because you're just so used to being in that hamster wheel of being stuck and how you're feeling. But I promise you, there is hope beyond this. There is a world beyond this that is bright and happy and can be whatever you want it to be. A couple of years ago, I never in a million years thought that I'd be feeling like I do today. And that's why I created Grace. I created it to help me survive what I was going through. I've built it into what it is to help you make it through and to know that there is hope and that your life can be whatever you want it to be. So I hope that you join us and you come in. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to email me. My email address is there. It's tracy@therebuiltwoman.com. Whatever it is that you choose, though, I hope that you choose yourself. I hope that you choose a path of healing and that you move forward in your life and you don't let your past keep showing up in your life the way it's been so that you're still living the same thing day in and day out and still not moving forward. Thanks for joining the webinar. I hope it was helpful to you. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you had some aha moments, and I wish you nothing but joy and peace in your life.